Glover is the forgotten child of the N64 era 3D platformers. It sits in the dark corner alongside Ubisoft's Sonic Trouble. In my experience, a lot of people have heard about Glover but never actually managed to play it. I even rented it myself once as a kid, but I practically have zero knowledge of the game past the first few levels. Well, nearly 25 years past its prime, Glover has finally and faithfully been ported to PC. Perhaps a little too faithfully, as this isn't really a remaster, though it does sport several improvements including enhanced resolution, widescreen support, higher frame rates and the removal of the classic N64 fog. Though the game otherwise looks and plays identical with the same core assets and gameplay. So does Glover still hold up in modern times, and are the upgrades worth your money? That's what I'm here to answer in GameXplain's review of Glover on PC. The story begins with a wizard, seemingly trying his hand at alchemy. He quickly messes it up, throwing the titular Glover out the window, while dropping his other glove into the pot, creating the evil cross-stitch. You're then tasked with collecting 6 magical crystals, which Glover transformed into bouncy balls so they don't break. Oh wait, did I forget to mention that Glover has magical powers? Anyways, the plot doesn't take up much time before dropping you into a creepy hub world. Yeah, the atmosphere in this game is certainly eerier than what I've come to expect of 3D platformers. I came to learn that Glover is a very unique game in general, and that carries over into how the game handles, being more Super Monkey Ball than it is Mario, meaning you'll be battling with ball physics to get to the end of the levels. Luckily there's a handy tutorial. I normally dislike wasting times in tutorials, but Glover is so untraditional that I think it's needed. As Glover you can double jump, ground pound, do a card wheel, which is only ever needed once across the 6 worlds. Unfortunately, Glover lacks fluidity because there's an annoying delay between landing and when you can jump again. However, where the fun lies is in the ball control. At the start of the level, you have to find a ball which is typically quite close to where you begin. Once obtained, you can press B to bounce it, hold B to lob it, hold A to slap it, and press the right bumper to change the ball's form. It took a while for me to get the hang of it. Bouncing the ball is almost like a jump, but you have to time it perfectly and wait for the ball to reach the top of the bounce before bouncing it again, making platforming with the ball quite the challenge. I actually really enjoyed this aspect of the game. It was almost rhythmic trying to platform with the ball. The physics impressed me, and learning to navigate the level's slopes, hills and platforms was engaging. I was less enthusiastic about the other aspects of the ball though. Slapping and throwing it was quite finicky, as I often had to throw it onto a narrow platform or across a tight gap. The ball has a life of its own, literally. If either Glover or the ball fall off the level, then it's game over and you have to start from the previous checkpoint. When walking on water, Glover rolls the ball around with his feet, or fingers I guess. And here the controls are inverted, meaning holding the stick forward will roll you backward. I understand the physics behind this, but it just felt weird. After a while I did get the hang of it though. Interestingly, when playing on easy mode, the controls aren't inverted, but you also don't get access to the bonus levels, which I was too proud to miss out on. However, in hindsight, I kinda wish I took the easy way out. The ball has 4 different forms which you can cycle through with the right bumper. So the bouncy ball does exactly what it says on the tin. The bowling ball can break walls. The magnetic ball both sinks in water and can be pulled to magnets, though these opportunities are few and far between. Finally, there's the crystal. While this mode is active, you receive more score for picking up Garobs, which are the game's only collectible, but it's fragile. One bounce and it'll break, sending you back to the previous checkpoint. Other than that, there are a few power-ups, but they weren't implemented all too well. Each one is used literally a few times each across the whole game, so they were pretty useless. The speed power-up is needed once, maybe twice across the whole game. There's one that grants Glover Spider-Man-like wall climbing, but again it's used like 3 times across the 6 worlds. The game needed a bit more variety, and more clever use of the power-ups would have been a nice touch, but it's just not the case in Glover. There are 6 worlds with 4 levels each and the bonus level, and they're slightly different from the typical ice, fire and water worlds, instead being a prehistoric one, a pirate world and a carnival world to name a few. It's nice that there's plenty of variety in these world themes, but they still felt a little uninspired, as I can't for the life of me remember much of the levels within the worlds. The only one that really stands out is the snow level, where your ball accumulates snow as you roll it, meaning you have to bounce it to remove the snow before you can properly use it again. I enjoyed this mechanic, but it left me wanting some more world-specific mechanics, like say, using a cannon on the pirate levels to launch the ball across gaps. The goal in every level is to get the ball to the end, which can be difficult enough in some cases. The only other objective is to collect all these magical playing card looking things which are called Garobs. And here is where the frustration begins. Some of these Garobs are near impossible to find without a guide, as the game is terrible at leading you towards hidden areas. Take the first level for example. I couldn't find the final few Garubs, but it turns out I had to knock over this single pillar to find them. To my knowledge, this isn't done any other time outside of this world, and the game didn't even hint towards me needing to do this, so how am I supposed to figure it out? Another thing is that some enemies drop Garubs, but again, the game doesn't give any indication as to which enemies you can kill and which you can't. They're easy to kill, but in general, it's very sloppily designed in this regard. The enemy design is bland too. Again, none of them stood out, and there was also a strange glitch where I would kill an enemy and their corpse would stay on the screen. The same goes for bosses, as they're extremely easy with no defining features. The only difficult fight is the Frankenstein one, and by difficult I mean frustrating. In it you have to ground pound platforms to raise the opposite ones, making a clear way of platforms for you and the ball to reach the top of the level to beat the boss. Unfortunately, this level requires you to throw the ball onto every platformer, and that's where the game is at its worst. If you've played it, then you know what I'm talking about. I was pushing for 100% completion when I first started, but then the worst glitch in the game happened. Oftentimes when I would fall off the level, Glover would just float mid-air, refusing to die, meaning I would have to restart the level and recollect every single Garub that I had done previously. It seemed to happen at random, and through testing, I couldn't figure out exactly what caused it, but it ruined the experience for me, and in the 60 FPS mode it seemed to happen a lot more. Between bland levels, finicky controls, and this bloody glitch that could halt my progress through a level, I totally gave up for 100% completion. I did manage to 100% one of the worlds, and at the end, unlocked the bonus level, which was a Frogger clone in this case. Unfortunately, it controlled absolutely terribly, so it was hardly worth the effort. Since I have limited experience with the original game, I don't know if this is a glitch in the original or if it's new to the remaster, but either way, it was extremely frustrating. There are other glitches like the camera getting stuck in geometry and Glover randomly falling through the floor that won't be too surprising to fans of N64 era platformers, but they're still frustrating to encounter all the same. My gripes aside, Pico Interactive have done an admirable job of porting old titles onto modern hardware. While it's not exactly a full-on remaster, it's nice to have it available for everyone to play on modern hardware, with some visual enhancements like higher resolutions, no fog, and potentially better frame rates, but more on that in a second. I played the game on a 1080p laptop and a 1440p monitor, and it ran flawlessly. The image is super sharp. Well, as sharp as an N64 game can look, and it's even clearer now thanks to the fog being removed. It also works perfectly with every controller I tried, and it has keyboard support, which is nice to have for anyone crazy enough to play a 3D platformer that way. Now, there are a few options to choose from, but you have to edit a .ini file yourself, which is something I haven't done in a long time. And this includes the game's frame rate, in which you can choose between a 30 FPS, 60 FPS, or the original's 20 FPS. You know, like the good old days. Unfortunately, like loads of other old games, there are things that are tied to frame rate, so playing at anything higher than the original 20 can result in some issues. For instance, when playing at 60 FPS, Glover's walking animation glitches and he gets stuck in the terrain, stilting his movement. I also think the respawning glitch I mentioned previously was worse in 60 FPS. While these issues are unfortunate, the game is almost playable in 60 FPS. If it wasn't for the respawn glitch, I probably would have sucked up the strange walking collision and played in 60 FPS. 30 FPS mode had the same issues as 60 FPS. Obviously 30 and 60 FPS are superior for smoothness, but I played the majority of my time in 20 FPS, as I knew then I was getting the true experience with no new bugs or glitches. I don't think there's much a developer can do without completely rebuilding the game from scratch. For what it's worth, and I can't believe this is coming out my mouth, it's a smooth 20 FPS at least. The graphics in general hold up well enough. It lacks the colour that Mario 64 or Banjo has, so it's certainly more unappealing than the other two titles, but it has a few standouts like the carnival levels. The music is brilliant though, it's actually my favourite part of the game. The game has a strange atmosphere and the music drives it home, especially in the creepy overworld. I also love some of the tranquil tracks in the Atlantis world. And the title theme is uncharacteristically just super cheerful. As a port of a 25-year-old game, Glover is pretty great. It works well at modern resolutions, adding a nice clarity to the image, especially with the removal of the N64 fog. As I said before, I appreciate that Pico Interactive is putting the time to bring these old games to modern hardware, flaws and all, even when it's a game that I didn't otherwise love myself. I can now understand why this is one of the more forgotten N64 platformers. Beside the unique premise and the ball controls, the rest of the game is just quite bland. I'm struggling to think of any standout levels, and the boss fights are even more unmemorable. There is little to no variation across levels too, with poor implementation of power-ups and few world-specific mechanics. And that's why I'm mixed on Glover for PC. It's a good port of an average game. There we have our review for Glover on PC. I would love to know what you think of the game, and if you had fond memories of the original, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the videos on the right, and you may as well subscribe while you're at it. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you all on the next video.